Rachel, you let me know when I can launch the public meeting.
Okay, Zach, are you back? And Josh, are you good to go? Josh
Ready
is
to
good?
go.
Awesome, thank you. So we're just waiting on Zach and then we should be good.
I'm not able to hear you.
Can anybody hear me? Okay. Oh, good. Whew.
I can hear.
Okay.
So Sarah, can you hear others of us or just
Yeah.
Rachel? Yeah, she can't hear anybody.
Okay. Um,
Is it my audio?
I
Oh,
think so.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm on. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I apologize for that. I'm ready to roll.
All right. Good. I was like, oh
So
man.
sorry. Okay. All right. May I start?
I think we're still waiting on Zach.
Okay. Okay. Very good. I see. It's muted. Once we go through the introductions, Matthew, you are on deck as the primary, and Laura will be the secondary reviewer.
For Albion, we're gonna go alphabetically, right?
We're going to go alphabetically, just like that list, the primary and secondary list and the agenda I sent out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
One of the benefits of Zoom panel meetings is we don't have to re-scramble all the applications just based upon who showed up for the meeting.
Right. Oh, there we go.
Very good. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Peets, and on behalf of the Nebraska Arts Council, I'd like to welcome you all to this panel meeting. We have convened to review applications in the Arts Project Grant category. Decisions made by this panel will determine the funding for all applications. They will then be reviewed by the Nebraska Arts Council at the next meeting, which will convene on June 4th of 2024. Right now, I'd like for each of our panelists to introduce yourselves, and I will call on you one by one, and I will start with Matthew Boring.
Good morning. I'm Matthew Boring. I'm the Deputy Director at the Leeds Center for Performing Arts. I've been at the Leeds Center since 2011. My background is in trumpet performance. I still play trumpet in all kinds of things with organizations across the state. And I feel really fortunate to be on the Nebraskans for the Arts Board and the Hickson Lead College Alumni Advisory Board. Great to be with you this morning.
Thank you, Matthew. And next, we'll hear from Zach Cheek.
Hi, yes, my name is Zach Cheek. I'm on the Nebraska Arts Council board along with Sarah. Been a member of the board since 2020. I have a music degree from UNL And I'm from Elkhorn, and I got my master's degree at the London School of Economics. And yeah.
Thank you, Zach. And next, I'd like Laura Demuth to introduce herself, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Laura Demuth. I too have a connection to UNL. I was there for 26 years. I'm a music historian and have spent most of my time in the honors program at the university. In addition, I help students apply for and win competitive national grants and awards. So that's kind of my background.
Thank you, Laura. And finally, we have panelist Pam Starr. Pam, can you unmute, please?
To avoid that. Hello, I'm Pamela Starr, and I'm a professor emerita, retired professor of music history at UNL. I've had the honor of teaching literally hundreds of music performers and music administrators in my career, in my 34-year career at UNL, and including some of the performers that we'll be talking about today.
Thank you, Pam. And in addition to this group of panelists, we have several Nebraska Arts Council members present today who are helping facilitate this meeting. And they include Mike Markey, who is our executive director, Rachel Morgan, our program specialist, Sam Hinney, who is helping with technical issues. Jennifer Dreibelbus is managing the scoring online, and Nick Osborne is also with us, and Josh Brown from the NAC office. So thank you all for helping. And at this time, I will turn it over to Mike Markey for any comments.
Thank you, Jana. And I have lots of thank yous and congratulations this morning. I congratulate Rachel for putting together such a learned panel, and I thank you all for helping us out with these applications this morning. And I congratulate everybody out there who has put an application together and put these projects together. Thank you for sharing them with us. I think that you'll get an awful lot out of the panel today. The comments that you will hear are meant to help you improve your applications and your projects. So I hope you take them to heart. And good luck with your projects. I did want to mention a couple of things that are of interest. One is that public funding for the arts is very important for the work that you do, and obviously for the work that we do. And that happens because of our relationships with our elected officials. And so we encourage you to continue the work that you do, inviting your elected officials. We got a brand new slate of candidates just after yesterday who will become elected officials, some of them. And so we encourage you to invite them to come to your projects, to engage with them, talk about the power of public funding for the arts, and to thank them for the work that they do. I wanted to let you know that we have finished our process of strategic planning, a 3-year plan, and we'll be sharing it with the public very soon. And so I encourage you to look at that, read it over, see what it is that we'll be about for the next year and how it may resonate with the work that you do. Finally, I wanted to let you know that we will be having our statewide arts conference and creative districts assembly on September 5th and 6th. We'll be gathering all of the new creative districts from around the state for the first time. And on the second day, on the Friday, we'll have our statewide arts conference. I encourage you to look at it and see if it speaks to you. I'd like to see you there. It'll be in Beatrice on the 6th of September. Lots of speakers, workshops, and a chance to talk with the other people around the state that do work similar to yours. So I encourage you to take a look at that. With that said, I will send you back to Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And we have lots of fun things coming up with the Nebraska Arts Council, as you can tell. And I will now turn it over to Rachel. Rachel, will you tell us about the grant program and panel process, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. For those of you tuning in, I want to say thank you for joining us, and thank you to our panelists today for the work that they have put into this panel process. For the applicants joining us, the arts project grants that will be reviewed today are projects that have a music focus, because that is the area of expertise of this panel. We will go in alphabetical order. And I know Sam has been putting which application we're moving on to next. So he will help keep us updated. We'll also announce it auditorily also as we begin the review, so you can keep track of which one we are on. Just be aware that if you're tuning in on YouTube, you will not be interacting with the panel. We would love for you to drop a comment in and let us know which organization you're with so that we at the Arts Council know who's tuning in. That's always nice to know. But any questions, things like that, the panel will not see and will not be a part of the panel process. If you're not able to join us today, and even if you are, we will also be providing written minutes as well. And so you will get a copy of those in a few weeks once the NAC board has reviewed the recommendations from the panel. So just know that you will be getting written minutes as well, so that you can review those and go back over those and see what the panel has to say.
Thank you, Rachel. So I think it's time to get started, and we will begin with these steps. Rachel will provide a synopsis for each of the applications. I will then call on the panelists first, the primary reviewer, then the secondary reviewer, and then the remaining reviewers one at a time, should there be anything additional they wish to add. And then you will be allowed to complete your scores, and then we will move on to the next application. So we will now proceed with the first application, and it is the Albion Area Arts Council. Our primary reviewer is Matthew Boring. So Matthew, will you please begin the review?
And I will pop in with the quick summary.
Synopsis. I just flew right through step one.
Yeah,
Thanks, Rachel.
It always takes us one. After the first one, we're good. So this grant will help to fund the artists who will perform during the Albion Area Arts Council Summer Concert Series at the venue on 4th Street Outdoor Community Area in downtown Albion, Nebraska. The 2024 Summer Concert Series will consist of 4 outdoor concerts in July. They estimate 1,800 people from the Boone County area and surrounding communities are expected to attend the concerts.
Thank you. Now, Matthew, I'll turn it over to you for your review. Yes.
As Rachel mentioned, it's a 4-performance concert series. I really appreciated the variety of music. It was really clear to me right off the bat that, from dueling guitars and pianos to having the Wildwoods and having original music, to having cover bands, one that's not from the area. It was clear to me it was a mix of different artists that would be really appreciated throughout the community. When I was reviewing the artistic quality section, that was the part that stood out the most, and it would have the video with past highlights, but it was a little hard for me to really get a sense of what the festival was like without any footage from the actual event that had audio with it. So for me, that's something that could have strengthened it. Is even footage from a phone, or doesn't have to be fully produced, but just something that gives a sense of this is how this is what the music is like, and kind of just really gives a sense of what the festival atmosphere was. I thought it was a strong budget. It had a clear outline for each concert event, which I also appreciated. It was nice to see the breakdown for each concert, and the roles were clearly defined in the planning documents. There were a few unique things in the goals section that I wanted to call out. And one was an increased goal of sponsorship and volunteering, which I thought was a great goal. Setting metrics around we're trying to reach 20 to 30 businesses. That puts it out there so that you're able to set a goal of did we reach 20 to 30 businesses? Did we start with a big enough list to have that many sponsors? And the draw of if you can be a cash sponsor, that's great. If you can be a volunteer sponsor and your employees can volunteer at the festival, I thought that was a great way to involve businesses that may not do a cash sponsorship. The goal of increasing attendance was clearly outlined, and the 25 to 30% sponsorship donation increase is ambitious, but I thought with the supporting info is realistic. The $1,500 promotional budget I thought may not be fully sufficient to promote 4 weeks of concerts. But I did appreciate seeing that there was still a mix of like online and print and radio, even with a smaller budget. And I wondered if having, a defined media partner, that's either making in kind or cash contribution, could strengthen that in the future. Really the only concern that I had with this application, there was a comment that if none of the assisted living residents could come, then they would plan a separate concert. And so I think just clarifying, like, maybe someone that's from, that community, either a resident or a staff member, could be part of the planning process so that they could help determine, like, is this a great match? And then we can just plan on it and what things might be needed. Or maybe it is better to have a separate concert from the festival. But not seeing that reflected in the budget, it just made me wonder how viable it would be to do the full series and then also produce a separate event that wasn't budgeted.
Thank you, Matthew. Great comments. And our secondary reviewer is Laura Damath.
Well, I agree with everything Matthew said. I would say that the other thing that I found very exciting about this particular application was the creative way they were going to use the downtown space, which had been, an abandoned building. So this is a real community building kind of experience, which I really thought was important. I liked also the variety of the artists. I wasn't sure where they had been chosen yet or not. So I guess that's one question I had, is had the artists actually been selected? I agree with the video. I was watching the video and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just hearing canned music. I'm not hearing the music of the actual event. And I think I would have liked to have seen that. I think that's something that could be done next time, which would really help the reviewer understand the event as a whole. But I did appreciate the video, and I thought its inclusion was important. Yes, I really like the variety of music genres. I always have a little bit of problem with the assessment of these events, but I do think that they're doing a good job in terms of tracking. But again, I wish I would hear a little bit more about what they were interested in learning from their small surveys. What kind of return might they get? How could they incentivize anybody to return the surveys? Those kinds of things. And then I thought the budget looked good. I thought they had an excellent description of the general demographics of the area. And they seem to recognize that their minority population was small, and that their elderly population was large, and that they were going to try to do something to address this. Again, I wanted a little bit more detail, as Matthew did probably, on the elderly. How are we going to really reach the elderly? Were they going to, transport them or have this separate concert? Anyway, it was something that I felt, again, detail would have added so much more to the application. I love the letters of recommendation. I thought they were very strong. They had really community partners in the Albion Economic Development Group. So it's clear that this is an important event for this area. So I thought the application was very strong.
Great. Thank you, Laura.
Mhm.
And Zach or Pam, we can start with Zach. Do you have additional comments, please?
Sure. I mean, the points that I took down have mostly been touched on already. The only thing that I wrote here was that, let me see. I believe that when they had the video of the Wildwoods, that they discussed that it was a potential performer at the event. And so that, I tilted my head a little bit. I said to myself, I'd like to know the extent to which this is potential, if they performed in the past, I felt as if the work sample was saying, well, these are some people who might perform, which does have some value in itself. It tells me, the kind of artists they're trying to recruit and things like that. But if Albion Area Arts Council is giving it as a representative sample of their work and their artistic quality, then I'd like to know the extent to which it is potential or likely to be one of the performing groups.
Thank you. Pam, do you have any additional comments? And unmute, please.
There. No, actually, I concur with the primary and secondary evaluations. I thought the variety of styles and genres in the performers was very intriguing, bringing some cultural enrichment to the community. So yes, I agree, it was a strong application.
Great. Thank you. Now I'll give you all a moment to complete your scoring, and please give me a thumbs up, okay sign, when you are done and we're ready to move on. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Laura. Oh, thank you, Matt. Got it. Thank you. Great. Good start, everyone. And now we're going to move on to BFF Omaha Inc. Our primary reviewer will start us off, and that is Laura.
And I'll start with a brief summary.
Thank you, Rachel.
That's all right. Thanks, Sarah. Funds will pay artists to participate in and produce outdoor community events in Benson between July 1st and September 30th of 2024. Funds will pay professional artists knowledgeable in sound engineering and music production to oversee a new internship program focused on the creation of shared outdoor community facilities and management of outdoor performances, including Benson Days, Pet Fest, and the New American Arts Festival.
Thank you, Rachel. And now, Laura.
Okay. Well, I thought this was a very rich and thorough application. I primarily liked the idea of having shared resources for the Benson area. I thought that was kind of innovative. However, of course, I have some comments that I think reflect perhaps the fact that the writers of the application assume that the reader knows too much. And so just for example, a lot of things weren't identified or were sometimes identified and sometimes not identified. So for example, it took me a long time to figure out what BFF was. And it also, I didn't understand Pet Fest. The only thing I could figure out is that maybe it was performed next to a pet shop. I really didn't quite understand what that was. And maybe I didn't read carefully enough, but I wish that the first time something was mentioned that I had had a full explanation so I understood. I love the idea of the internship program. This is a wonderful thing to do, is to have younger people working these festivals and figuring out how things work and what works best. However, I really wish they'd given me a little bit more information on the internship program. It was said that it was overseen by professionals and that they're going to select 2, but I really didn't know how they were going to select them. I know that right now there is a selection going on or an application process going on, but what is it that's going to determine who becomes an intern? I don't think they have to be from the Benson area, but that would be kind of interesting to know. The interns are paid a very nice sum, I think, for a summer internship. But, what is the criteria? What are they going to be looking for? I think a little bit more information on the interns would be good. Artistic merit, the building of the community through arts engagement, the shared community resources is key to this application, and one that I really thought was exciting. I also thought it was very nice that the individual groups would select the artists, that it wasn't going to be, selected by the bigger group, but the individuals were going to, for their community, we're going to select the artist. I thought that was very important and very key to, again, understanding this concept of sharing. I was a little confused by, and I thought this was a great idea, is to have the high school come in and help design and build the seating and creative lighting and that sort of thing for these performances. And again, that would all be shared between the three groups. But I wasn't sure who was paying for, and it might be that this was all gratis from the school, but I wish I'd understood how that was being funded. I didn't quite understand that. But again, I mean, the whole concept of again, shared community with these artists that speak to different sections of that community, I thought that was really great. And again, the artists weren't really identified yet. They were to be selected by these individual groups, but it's sometimes hard to know how artistic qualifications are if you don't really know who's been selected. Again, I like the evaluations. I thought that was really good. I wasn't sure how they were going to determine psychometric information, but whatever. I thought that they had a wide variety of assessment tools. The planning seemed very strong. The budget, I had one question. I wasn't sure what overhead administration was. Could that be more detailed? Could we have a little bit more detailed accounting of what they meant by that? Yeah. And again, back to are the schools providing the resources to build? And they might very well, I just didn't see that. But I think the audience development, it provides a clear demographic of the Benson area. I think the underserved outreach is strong. They're serving that particular area, which is underserved, and again, which has different needs given where those are located. They have a large number of community partners, which is again wonderful to see. There seems to be a lot of enthusiasm and support for this. And they've been expanding their accessibility measures with new ramps, paved pathways, improved doorways, things like that. So they're very cognizant of the people's needs when they're in that environment. Basically, it has a great letters from the high school, so the high school's supporting it, and a Benson resident. And I think it's working very hard to unite the community and have the community working together. So the community aspect of this is the thing that I think is really the winning piece.
Thank you, Laura. And our secondary reviewer is Pam. So go ahead, Pam.
All right, I haven't written anything out. I'm just looking at my notes. I completely concur with Laura's remarks, both the strengths and the weaknesses. I would just emphasize that the community engagement and involvement is terrific. It seems, exactly what is needed for this kind of project. The planning seems right on target, except I couldn't find an indication of an evaluative process. It may have been in there, but I couldn't make much out of that. So the great strength is the diversity, community involvement, and definitely the internships. Although I agree with Laura that it would have been good to have that process, really clearly spelled out. I think the concern is the vague and unspecified information about the performing groups and how they would be chosen. To be sure, it seems impressive to let the neighborhoods choose them, but no process was indicated, and one has has to wonder how that would work, and also how that would guarantee artistic merit. Who is going to be able to determine that? So I think it's a strong and very laudable effort to engage an important part of the Omaha community. And like Laura, I had no idea what BFF meant until I just kept reading the fine print, and finally it said something like formerly known as the Benson something something BFF. And it would be great to put that at the very top of the application in the mission statement, I think. Oh, one more thing. The internship on sound engineering. I think this is the only application I've read that includes that, and that's really important. The people who are applying, the applicants seem to have a lot of strength in visual and audio technology and promotion, and I think they could do a wonderful job in training younger people in that very vital artistic ability. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Pam. Excellent. And Matthew, do you want to make any additional comments?
Yeah, I agree that the intern program is really, I mean, it's great. I think this would be a great intern gig for someone to have. I definitely shared Pamela's concerns on the planning and evaluation. The piece that I found in it was we're going to measure growth of participating artists and interns. So like, are our interns getting jobs? Are the artists playing more things? And I love that idea. I just think like the sharing a little bit of how, because my first question was like, wow, that seems really difficult to measure. And so like, how are you going to track that? Or, providing some, since we've been running this festival, and I realize this is a different process with the interns, but like artists who have played this are playing more venues, or people who have been in these intern positions are doing this. I think is something to keep in mind, for future grant cycles, to really show that, yes, we do have a process in place that this can be measured and we are having success in it. Because I fully believe that the applicant, can generate that type of impact. And so showing what that's going to look like would be great. My last comment was just, this seems like there's so many parts to this, and there's multiple events, and the entire promotion budget is $600 for printing. And so that it just, I wonder, like, is the awareness truly going to be, as big as it could be with only a $600 printing budget? Just in terms of like trying to engage the whole neighborhood and maybe beyond just the Benson neighborhood proper, will a 600 printing budget maximize that impact?
Thank you, Matt. And Zach, do you have any additional comments?
All the points I wrote about were touched on, so I have nothing to add.
All right, thank you. And I'll give you a minute or two to complete your scoring should you need it. Thank you, Laura. Thanks, Zach. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Pam. Got it. Okay. Our next application for review is from the Capital Jazz Society, Inc. And I will turn it over to Rachel to give us the synopsis.
Thanks, Sarah. The Capital Jazz Society is a nonprofit organization that presents a series of high-quality jazz events on Monday evenings throughout the year at the Storm Cellar in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Thank you. Zach, would you please start us off with the primary reviewer?
Absolutely. And this will be the case for pretty much every application, I'm lucky enough to review today. And I believe I speak for the panel when I say that our jobs are not easy. They purposely make it very hard, but it's a good problem to have. And with that said, the only I was very impressed with this Capital Jazz application. The everything seemed to be in order, everything seemed to be organized and cogent. The only thing that I wrote is that in the community demographics section, um, I how do I say this? Jazz is an inherently diverse form for music, much more so than some other aspects of music. I would have appreciated more hearing about the demographics of Lincoln and how a Capital Jazz Society works to meet those demographics where they're at. So talking about uh, backgrounds of different kinds in Lincoln, and even if it, just kind of stating the obvious that Lincoln has, for instance, a large Vietnamese community, but like just talking about those demographics, saying according to the United States Census Bureau, Lancaster County, Nebraska has demographics of this proportion of this background, this proportion of this background, and this aspect of our program helps to serve this aspect of the Lincoln community given its unique needs. So that was one thing that I wrote. I also wrote that I went to their YouTube channel, listened around to a couple of the things, and then for about a week I had the song St. Thomas stuck in my head. If you guys know St. Thomas, bum, 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 bum. Anyhow, those were the only two comments I had. Beyond that,
Thank you, Zach. Okay, great. Thank you, Zach. And our secondary reviewer is Laura.
I certainly support this application. I think that the best way for students to learn how to play jazz is to do it. And this gives them the opportunity to do so with professionals. And so I really liked that. And I think I agree with Zach. This feeds into a community that's here in Lincoln. But I guess where I differ a little is that it's a very small community and a very closed community. And so knowing the demographics of Lincoln and knowing how they are constantly changing, I guess I would ask them to think about more innovative ways to reach out to the community as a whole. When you have Facebook and social media and emails that go to mailing lists, those are the people that you know, the people that sign up to be on Facebook. So how do you reach the people that don't know about you, that you don't know? And so I would think that having some sort of, and they might do this, but having some sort of educational component where they reach out to high schools that are underserved in the Lincoln area, like North Star, Northeast. These are schools that have jazz programs. They could easily do things with those schools to try to drum up more interest in what they do. Because I think what they do is very important, but they need to spread the word a little bit more widely. I think there's just more to be done to reach a diverse audience. How do you diversify your audience? The letters are also from people who have been in the groups. And I think hearing from principals whose students have been in the jazz programs would be useful. So you're hearing from performers who are also teaching in the schools, right? So there's, again, is this very narrow stream. If we could hear from the principals, if we could hear from someone else about how this program might have affected their students. And I just felt that having letters from people who performed with the group was a little limiting and should be more expanded. I think they're very competent at how to plan the event. They've been doing this for a while. Oh, I know. One of the things they talk about is how going to the storm cellar, moving to the, oh, that's right. This is the storm cellar one, isn't it? Oh, gosh. Yes.
Yes.
Going to the storm cellar has changed things, but they didn't really tell me how. I want to know how it changed things. Did it change the demographics? Did it change, what was it about the storm cellar? It would have been nice to have heard from the people at the storm cellar that they appreciated these jazz performances. So that's all. I mean, I think it's certainly been we've supported this for a long time. I think it should be supported. It's just can it be diversified anymore? Can we reach out to find a different, additional people for the audience?
Thank you, Laura.
Mhm.
Matthew, do you have any additional comments?
Yes, I really appreciated that the videos were from live performances and represented multiple artists and styles, because they talk about having the big band performances and then having the small group performances. And I thought that the videos that they provided really, you know, it gave me a good sense of that. Even if I hadn't attended, you could get a sense of the type of groups that perform there. The artist selection process is a bit vague, but it has high quality results. And so when I look at the programming and I look at the materials they supply, like, oh, these are high quality artists, these are high quality groups. But the actual process of, you know, after someone applies, you know, they talk about a rolling 3-month, like what happens then, you know, after that application goes in, you know, what's the group that determines the programming? And then my only other comment was in the planning and evaluation section, the timelines in before the concert date. And so when the timeline stops, you know, 3 days in advance of each performance, then there's nothing that like really leads up to that, you know, like day of show type planning document. And I think going through the performance and then the reflection period of, you know, we're going to gather the info, we're going to, you know, gather the attendance. And while not required in the application, if you can show us some of that of like, this is what we've been tracking, this is what we've been, you know, seeing, I think to Laura's point about like, what has changed at the Storm Cellar? What's going great? What is a big challenge? Like, I wanted to see that because they talk about how big of a shift that venue change was. And those are all my comments.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. And Pam, any additional comments?
I do have a couple. I concur with both Matt and Laura about the strengths of this program. I should confess, full disclosure, I have been in the audience at the Storm Cellar for a number of these evenings and admired the diversity of the performance, the outstanding excellence, and the inclusion of young artists, including high school artists, and giving them a chance to sit, you know, next to and play next to someone who, you know, a veteran of long experience. And I think whoever is selecting the artists, even though I agree it's a little unclear, is selecting them very wisely and very, very well. I question the venue, and that is probably the more serious concern. I don't understand what the Storm Cellar is actually bringing, and I would have appreciated some detail about how that experience would enhance or enlarge the experience of the audiences, which I have to confess are fairly small despite the publicity that they have. And also, I am concerned about the high school underage students in the context of that particular venue. So those are my concerns. I would like in a future application to see more about why the Storm Cellar is the perfect venue for this enterprise and how they came up with it and why it was better than where it used to be. I'm not aware of where it used to be. I also have to say more on evaluation. I don't know if they actually are circulating these questionnaires, and if so, how they're using them to the patrons, that is the audience in the Storm Cellar. So that's
Thank you. Great observations. Okay, I will give you all a moment to complete your scoring. Thank you, Pam. Thanks, Zach, Matthew, and Laura. Excellent. And I think we'll do one more grant application before we take a break. Will your dog be okay, Pam?
Yes,
Okay,
I think I
awesome.
haven't heard anything. Yeah, thanks.
So our next application is the Grand Island Music Series. And Rachel, please give us the synopsis.
Thank you, Sarah. The Grand Island Music Series is a newer concert series taking place at Stir Museum and College Park in Grand Island. There will be 3 indoor concerts at College Park and 3 outdoor concerts at Stir Museum between July and December of 2024.
All right, thank you. And our primary reviewer is Laura.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this might be the second year, maybe third, for the Grand Island Music Series, and I think they learned a lot from their first year. I see a much more sophisticated application. I think that there's an importance to the community. I think that there's a very clear demographic that they lay out, that they're trying to address, and I think they do a pretty good job of that. I would say that one concern I have, and it's just a basic how you fill out one of these applications concern, which is that later in the application, they talk about 8 indoor concerts and 4 free outdoor concerts. And it seems that they might have, I don't know if that's a conflation of something that happened before or something that they're thinking about a future event that they've put in together with this application. But I think they need to be consistent about what they're asking for in this application for this grant period. It's for this, and stay clear of everything else. I thought that the qualifications of the artists seemed pretty high. I liked, again, the variety. And the goal is to provide this variety to the surrounding communities. And I think that they've done a great job. The evaluation is particularly weak with this one, I think. It says, I mean, it's certainly tracking audiences, but they do provide a questionnaire in the program, which is, we welcome your feedback. Please take a moment to fill out this questionnaire. And they ask for some demographic information, but then they ask you to rate the concert, how well you liked it, and then if you have any suggestions. That kind of open-ended questionnaire really is not going to get at what I think they maybe want to know. And I'm not sure how many people are going to complete it. And I think thinking about incentivizing a little bit or something might be helpful. The timeline looked very short and not very detailed. I thought that they needed to add some more detail to that. They had a great section on the audience development and the demographics of the Grand Island area. The underserved outreach, I think they're doing a lot. I think they could do more. There is a fantastic multicultural community center in Grand Island that they could work with to help spread the word about these concerts. How could they change some of the ways in which they advertise? Are there Spanish-only radio stations? What could they do to do more outreach? I think I think there is more that they could do. So the educational outreach was a little bit confusing to me. They talk about reaching out to the elementary schools, but for the fall performances, not having any educational outreach. And they hope that the spring concerts will have some educational outreach. And I think I would like more detail on this. So, for example, we don't have any for the fall, but we have contacted X at this school, and we're thinking about having these series of small performances to help advertise, drum up, and get students interested and involved in these concerts. So they kind of mention it, they touch upon it, but they don't really go into great detail and depth so that we're convinced that they're going to do it. Yet the letters, I think the most fantastic letter is from the elementary school. that just blew me away. That's one of the best letters I've read in a long time. I mean, it really was wonderful. And so getting that letter, you would think they'd want to go out and do a little bit more. Community partnerships, I think they've got a lot. I think that they're doing, each year they're adding more. I think that they're doing, and they have free tickets that they give out to churches within the community to pass out to the congregation. So they're doing things, but this is a young series, and I think they're learning as they go along. I totally support it. I think it's wonderful. I just wish that there was a little bit more detail, and so that I understood better the impact that they're having on the communities.
Thank you, Laura. And Zach, will you please provide comments as a secondary reviewer on this app?
Sure, I don't have much to add beyond what Dr. Damas said. I was very impressed by this application. I was also very impressed by the elementary school letter. I actually printed it off just to read through it again a couple times over, just because I found it so impressive while I was on subways or whatnot. But don't have much else to add beyond the point she touched on, just besides to emphasize that the Grand Island Music Series made my job a lot harder, but that's a good problem to have, and I was very impressed.
Thank you, Zach. Pam, do you have any additional comments?
Well, just to endorse both reports and to say that I too thought the letter from the K-5 teacher was impressive, and therefore I would have liked more detail. I think, it would be great to have more detail on how, those performances at the K-5 schools could be implemented. I was impressed too with the director of the Stewart Museum. So it's clear that this enterprise has strong artistic and community support. That was impressive.
Thank you. Matthew, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I thought the artistic section was really high. It's helpful to see multiple years of festival programming, because then I can also get a sense of what has been programmed in the past too. I thought the samples were great. The letter was great. This timeline also didn't include the week of concert tasks, which is I thought was a missing step. And the goals reflect on the past, but don't outline the future goals. And so my question was, is maintain the goal? And when I was looking at it against the rubric, the first section in goals and evaluation is measurable goals are provided. And I felt like I was really trying to find it in there, and I couldn't find what's going to be measured. The letter was fantastic. And in the outreach and engagement, it says that some events are free and all venues are accessible, but that's not the plan to reach an underserved audience. And so I love identifying that, yes, these are great venues because they are accessible, but what is the accessibility outreach plan? These concerts are free, but what is the plan to promote that to groups of people that intentionally go to free events? And so I just think that's that last piece of it that would push my evaluation into the kind of the top level.
Great, thank you. I'll give you a moment to complete your scoring. And Rachel, would now be a good time for our first break?
I think that would be excellent.
Okay, you guys are doing a great job of staying on task too. Thank you for that. We're moving well. Yes, Pam? Oh, okay. Oh, you're done. Got it. Okay. I went back to my previous. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Got it. All right. What time would you like us to reconvene, Rachel?
So let's come back at 10 after. That gives us a good 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. We'll see you all soon. Zach, are you back too? I see, don't see the video. All right, welcome back, everyone. We will start with our first grant application, and it is Howlands Corporation. And I will turn it over to Rachel to give us the synopsis.
Thank you, Sarah. The 12th annual Love of Art and Music, Love AM, other words, Jazz Festival will take place on August 31st of 2024 at Turner Park here in Omaha, and will showcase National Grammy Award-winning musicians and local bands. The festival will partner with other women and minority business owners from the North Omaha community to participate as vendors. The estimated attendance is approximately 8,000 people. Funding from the Arts Council will help pay for musicians and keep the festival a free and open to the public event.
Thank you. And we will lead with our primary reviewer, Pam.
Thank you. I have been learning a lot about being a primary reviewer from my colleagues, which I wish I'd had before I wrote this, but I decided, so as to keep in the 2 to 3 minute range I was given for the primary report, to write this out. So if it sounds a bit formal, I apologies, but I'm going to read from my script. The stated mission of the application to build a festive experience for the diverse and large audience situated in North Omaha is a strong one. The festival is built around a concert scheduled for August 31st, 2024, featuring a performance by Jonathan Butler, a jazz gospel performer with international credentials and awards. These are substantiated in video clips available on Butler's website. However, that website also reveals a possible conflict with a performance already scheduled in North Carolina on the very date of the Love AM Festival. The application states that negotiations with Butler's representatives are underway but not confirmed, and I hope that at the time of this panel meeting, they have already confirmed that and cleared up any concern about double booking. There are, however, no named regional or local bands alluded to in the application, nor is the process of recruiting and selecting them described. So the lack of secure information about the feature artists for the concert led to my giving the proposal a comparatively low score for artistic merit. Although if the international artist materializes and the local and regional bands are selected, that really could enhance the artistic merit. The biographies of the project manager and coordinator, although not specifically named in the application, I wish they had been, seem impressive. Each appears to have a number of years of experience with the Love AM Festival. The timeline appears to be on track, although much is still listed as in progress as of the application deadline, in addition to the aforementioned issues about engagement of artists. The evaluation procedures seem adequate and the goals are ambitious for that, but doable, I think. The budget seems reasonable, except for the one-line item for hotel accommodations for 15 individuals. And I'm not sure why so many are required, given that most artists would be local. The community outreach and audience engagement is the greatest strength of this application. The master class with the featured artist with scholarships for deserving students of limited means is another strength. The Howlands Corporation appears to have a strong track record of bringing art to the North Omaha community and has good plans to advertise the festival and engage the community. My summary, the ambitions of the applicants are large and justified in terms of serving a diverse community in Omaha. However, elements of the application are incomplete or contradictory, especially regarding the artistic participation of performers, and it would be good to see them strengthened.
Great, Pam, well done. And I will turn it over to Matthew, who is the secondary reviewer.
Thank you. Yes, this sounds like a fabulous festival. One of the many fabulous festivals that are in this application round that I've never attended, and I'm like marking my calendar now. So that was just right off the bat. An 8,000 person attended festival is a major undertaking, especially to have a free to attend and a free to exhibit. I thought that was something that added a little bit of a unique flavor to this, was intentionally reaching out to businesses that can really be part of it to make it a full festival experience, and then not charging a vendor fee. I think that's exactly the kind of work that we're trying to support, is this like full community building type effort. I did share Pamela's concern on being able to secure the artist, and so that decreased my score in that area. Having advanced ASL planning and promoting that, it seemed like there was a bit of a more intentional strategy, which I appreciated. Just saying, like, we are committed to having ASL, we're promoting it. That was a great step. 20% survey collection with 1,600 surveys. Whoa, that is impressive. I know very few people that can get 20% survey collection at their event. There must be a massive team that is working the ground game to get that to happen. And I'd love to see it, especially with that level of collection. There should be quite a few insights. We don't score on like grammatical errors or typos, but there's some wrong years, both in the planning document, in the outreach section. And so when it hits multiple sections, it's harder for me to overlook, because then I'm trying to make sure I understand, what's happening and when. And so having multiple ones of those, it started to undermine my confidence, both with, are the artists secured? Are these the right years? That narrative just, became more prevalent than I think is probably the case, because it's such a detailed, well thought out application. And the last thing that stood out to me was just making sure that the art exhibition is at appropriate heights. I exhibit art from time to time in venues, and I thought specifically stating that was a really it was an impactful thing that I will remember from this application, is making sure that art is exhibited at appropriate heights when it's being displayed in like kind of pop-up spaces. It sounds like it's a great festival overall. And there's major support from the Visitors Improvement Fund. That when I looked at the budget, I was like, wow, that's a huge commitment from the Visitors Improvement Fund. And I know how hard those are to secure too. So that was noted, that there's definitely been a well-rounded fundraising effort to try and get support from multiple areas and make it viable while being a free festival.
Thank you, Matthew. And Zach, do you have anything you want to add?
No, Matthew touched on all the points I had thought about myself. I also found this impressive and hard to criticize. I did write down that the same thing about the years, but beyond that, nothing.
Okay, great. And Laura, would you like to add anything?
Not much, because I think both have been very thorough, but my understanding is that Turner Park is in Midtown Crossing. And is that North Omaha? I don't think of it as North Omaha. So I was kind of
like Happy
interested
Hollow.
in that it was that seemed to be a little bit of tension there. But and then I just wanted to know a little bit more about the scholarships for the master classes, how many they were, how they were going to give them out, that sort of thing. I think whenever you make a statement like that, you want enough detail to back it up so that you know how it's going to happen.
Good comments. Okay, everyone, take a moment to complete your scoring. And let me know when you're done. Matthew, thank you. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Laura. Zach, did you give me your thumbs up? Thank you. And we'll move on to our next grant application, which is from the Holdridge Area Chamber of Commerce. And Rachel, please lead us off with the synopsis.
Thank you, Sarah. This grant will help pay for the Iron Horse Festival in downtown Holdridge on September 14th. The festival will feature artisan vendors and demonstrators, a Mona pop-up museum, bronze sculpture tour, photography contest winners display, temporary murals, live music, and more. It will culminate with an outdoor concert featuring popular country music artists in front of the Iron Horse Station. They estimate 1,000 to 2,000 people from the central region of the state and beyond will attend.
All right, thank you. And I will turn it over to Zach, who will give us the primary review.
Absolutely. Gosh, I hate to be redundant, but for me at least, it's made my job very hard reviewing these applications because they're so thorough and they work so closely with Rachel up to this point. Things I particularly liked about the application was the work samples. I like that song "My First Rodeo" by, I think her name was Savannah. That was fun, and then I like the artist bios. I got a good indication of the artist quality. I'm trying to take a look at what else I wrote here. Some of it I wrote it by hand, scanned it, and so some of it's marginalia. So let me take a look here. Yeah, nothing. Let me see. I liked the Phelps County demographics. I think it was very thorough, and yeah, I have no real criticisms to make. I was very impressed with it all. I felt like it discussed how to meet the community needs well, and that it was cognizant of the ways in which to reach out to underserved communities, the ways in which to assess its own merits as it goes forward. Like, I'm sorry I don't have many criticisms to make, but again, it's a good problem to have, I think.
Great, thank you, Zach. And our secondary reviewer is Laura.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was very excited about this particular application because it's their first one, their first foray into doing this large scale event in the Iron Horse district of Holdridge. And whenever there's something new and innovative coming to a small town, I just warms my heart, feels good. Couple of little things. At one point in the goals, they say they want to incorporate arts into at least 5 businesses. I didn't know what that meant. Again, just explaining a little bit more about how they would do that, what kind of arts they wanted to. And that's the other thing I liked about it. It wasn't just music, it was sculpture. It was a broader sense of the arts, which I think was also nice. But I think having an example of what they meant by incorporating the arts would have been really useful. Planning was very detailed. The budget was detailed. They have a post-festival survey that was, strong, and that it had a sense that they knew what they were kind of going for. But again, as this is a first event, this is just baby steps. They're going to learn from this event as to what they're going to have to do in the future. The demographics were excellent. And this is kind of a common theme. They talk about reaching out to assisted living facilities to see if they could include their residents. Again, I wanted more on this. I wanted more detail. What were you going to do? How many assisted living facilities are there in Holdridge? I mean, I think there's just one. But still, a noble attempt there. They have a lot of interesting ideas about promotion. They're thinking about translating materials into Spanish. How they're trying to reach a Spanish-speaking audience. But again, I think they're baby steps. They're just thinking and learning about how they might do that. Keeping the tickets relatively low cost. They've got some great community partners. And yeah, strong letters from their community partners too, which I think is really good. So.
Thank you, Laura. Pam, do you have any additional comments you would like to make? And
Just-
yes.
Just one. I agree with Laura's assessment that it's engaging to see, the birth and growth of a new enterprise, and it seems like a very promising one. This is more of a question following up on your mention of the engaging a Latino community. And I have to confess, I don't know what the demographics of Holdridge is or are. But if there is a Latino community to be engaged and involved, I wonder if just heading for just country music artists, English performers in English of country music is the only genre that they could be trying for. I mean, they might want to get some more ethnically diverse performers along with the other ones that they've mentioned.
Thank you, Pam. Matthew, do you have any further comments for us?
Yes. In the artistic, samples and things, there was a lot of discussion of the bronze art, but I didn't get to see it. And I really wanted to see the bronze art, and because it sounds amazing. And so I think making sure that, anytime there's different artists and different art forms that are kind of explicitly called out, I want to see those in the work sample. Kind of the same thing as we talked about earlier, which is that I want to see performance footage, in the work samples, just seeing a picture of an artist, it doesn't give me a sense of what's it like to see this artist. I know it's a new festival, so they're not able to provide this is what it's been like, but I just want to get a sense of, what is this performance going to be, and what's the energy of it. I thought that the goals were really clearly outlined. I was impressed, just because they were, they had both quantitative and qualitative goals, out of the gate, being a first major event, getting down into, we're trying this many general admission, we're trying, this many, VIP tickets, we're trying to sell some merchandise. It gives you something to measure against, because hopefully they blow it out of the park. But either way, you're able to say, we put a lot of thought into this. This is what we're trying to get to, and you can measure your success against it. So I scored that area really high.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I will give you a moment for final tallying of the score. Thanks, Zach. Thank you, Matthew. Pam, thanks. Thank you, Laura. And we will move on to our next grant application, which is Kimball Concert Association. And Rachel, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Sarah. This grant application will help the Kimball Concert Association kickstart their 48th year. Grant funds are essential to aid in paying for the artists who will be performing. They start off the year with the Alliance Brass Group, followed by Jason Coleman. These are lively and engaging groups who will fascinate our growing audience and student body. These concerts for the patrons and individual ticket holders will be held in the fall of 2024 at the auditorium in Kimball, Nebraska.
Okay, and Pam, you can lead us off as the primary reviewer.
Thank you. I felt this was a terrific application, and I feel it deserves funding. The artists have been booked through Allied Concert Services, which offers artists of fine caliber and modest performance fees. The repertoire offered by both the Alliance Brass Quintet and Jason Coleman are very appropriate to the Kimball audience, and their videos are of excellent quality. The Kimball concerts have been a successful venture for 48 years, and this application helps explain why. The specific goals and detailed plans for evaluation, promotion, timeline, budget, and outreach are all impressive and clearly and engagingly articulated in the proposal. The organizers, presumably very hardworking volunteers, seem committed to making sure the concerts are successful and on budget. The letters of support from community entities are enthusiastic. The organizers plan to engage the entire small community of Kimball and nearby communities, including schools, restaurants, etc., and the use of a lot of volunteer promotion. They offered the chance for excellent musical experiences from artists based in larger cities by a community unlikely to be able to travel to these cities. This is a Nebraska region that is underserved by such cultural events and would serve the community well, including, as they point out, newcomers like temporary workforces. This enterprise demonstrates the value of hard work and enthusiastic commitment. My summary, this is a very strong application showing careful planning as well as concern for the specific community, and why and how it would benefit from the artistic experience on offer. I did not spot any weaknesses to report in this application.
Very good. Thank you, Pam. And now Matthew is our secondary reviewer on this application.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Starr. I love this application. You know, it's clear the impact is there for the community. And so out of the gate, I love this application. My feedback comments are that, overcoming the transportation barriers might be best communicated and probably would be better scored in the outreach and engagement section versus artistic quality. Because when I'm scoring it, I'm looking at rubric, I'm looking at category, and I'm looking at applicant info. And so when the info from the applicant isn't in that section, I'm trying to piece it together. But as a reviewer, it's harder to do that. And so I was able to weigh that in, but I felt like I was grabbing areas from different sections to try and assemble my score. The goals and the evaluation are solid. I thought that was really clear. Love to see some of the info from past seasons. I think that's like the extra little piece. Just they have a 50-year history, and so I want to be able to recognize the success that they've had in evaluation. There's a typo in the budget that could have made a pretty big impact. Selling 20 versus 200 tickets. I know that's just like a zero, but that's like a big budget piece. And so I sort of view these like application budgets as, does that match the organization's budget and what you're using for like top line ticket sales? As a marketing director myself, is like that definitely stood out. I was like, this is a pretty big section to have typos when it's top line tickets. And my last comment was, in the outreach and engagement, I felt like it identifies some of the challenges that exist, but not necessarily how the organization is meeting them. And I believe that the organization is meeting them, but I want to read that because I believe it. So I want to read about how you're meeting the challenges, not just identifying them. And I think the one area I disagree with Dr. Starr on is that for me, the letters didn't identify the specific impact. They were pretty broad and overviewing. And I want like, what has changed? What's happening now? What happened last year? Whose lives are being impacted by this? And I want a little more. I want a little more just like authenticity than just like, we think this is a good idea. And so finding like who are the people that can really write that on your behalf and really say the impact it made. It doesn't have to be, a super formalized city council letter. I want that personal experience. But this sounds like a great program.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Laura, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to make?
Not too many. I agree with both both Matthew and Pamela. It's just a wonderful thing to see. You want these small communities to have access to the arts, and this is a very effective way of going about it. The only thing, and I think this talks a little bit about what Matthew was talking about in terms of outreach. They talk about, well, we can't really do much outreach to schools. It's hard. We can't bring the groups there. But I really think that there are things that you can do. For example, you could talk to music teachers and have maybe a small piece of the curriculum address what these what the performances might be having, or something like that, so that it's lots of. I don't think you should just say we can't do it, or we don't know how to do it, or we haven't figured out how, but they should have some ideas that they could maybe present to help support, in addition to the senior centers, some education outreach to the schools. That's all.
Okay, very good. And Zach, do you have anything you would like to add?
Sure. The one main thing I want to flag after having read the application is, I think that it's been touched on a little. I like the letters of support from the government, but government's just one stakeholder in the community, and especially for an enterprise that's been around as long as this organization and the series, I'd like to see letters of support from different aspects. I mean, it does matter to me to see that county commissioners and city government are supportive of the Kimball, of what's happening in Kimball here, but having a second letter from a community business or some fan, a former performer, some sort of stakeholder outside of the government would be nice. And I don't know, we talked a little bit before we went live about if we're supposed to, or if we're allowed to bring outside knowledge to this, but further complicating matters is too strong a word, but I can't find a better word in the moment. But further complicating matters is that in the administration bios, I could be wrong, but I believe that Karen Morrison is the first lady of Kimball. I believe that she's married to Mayor John Morrison. And so, which certainly shouldn't count against anybody for anything, but it does, it's further giving me the impression that I would want to see stakeholders outside the government involved in the process, involved in the application, and able to testify about the merits of this series.
Very good. Thank you. I'll give you all a moment to conclude your scoring. Thank you, Laura. Thanks, Matthew. Thank you, Zach. Thanks, Pam. Very good. All right, we will move on to our next grant application, which is from the Lincoln Community Foundation. And please give us the synopsis, Rachel.
Thank you, Sarah. Events take place on Wednesdays from May through September of 2024. Because of the way our fiscal year runs, events for this application will take place on Wednesdays starting in July. So that's just kind of a piece of information for the panel to understand. The whole series is much larger. Just what's in the application is during this fiscal year. These free public concerts are held from noon to 1 in the outdoor pavilion at the Barbara Bartle Lincoln Community Foundation Garden, and they are requesting funds to help support the free weekly concerts in downtown Lincoln.
Thank you. And Matthew, will you please lead us off with the review?
Yes. It's really helpful to see the live performance video. This for me, this was another example of this isn't full production multicam type recording, but I can see and hear the artists. I can see the variety of performers. I can hear the quality of the performances. Like seeing Will on stage, hearing the birds chirping in the background, I'm there. I want to be sitting in the garden, listening to Will Hutchinson perform for me. That sounds just perfect. What didn't help for me in the artistic quality section was, the work sample. You only get to include a couple work samples. And so having a really old article that has businesses that are closed being called out, it's not even the current like official name of the garden. For me, that definitely didn't help in the artistic quality section. In the planning and evaluation, I love the free performance being a goal, but it doesn't meet the criteria that we talked about earlier, which is, you know, measurable goals are provided. You know, how many people, like how many people, you know, it could be 100. I know this isn't a major 8,000 person festival, but what are the goals? What is being tracked? It was really difficult for me to get a sense of that. You know, and the day of planning and evaluation, you know, it says that, you know, the staff member on site, you know, tracks the metrics. What are they tracking? You know, the person who's there, like, we're going to track 1, 2, and 3. Doesn't have to be exhaustive, doesn't need to be massive survey, just looking for that, you know, what is the clarity in it. On the budget side, you know, this is just the way that I reviewed it. I almost think it's miscategorized. You know, there's 50% of the budget is contracting. And when I read that, that's administration. And so if that's true, it's actually not eligible. And I realize we're scoring it, you know, how it's submitted. But that heavily impacted my score in that section, which is that I understand you have to have overhead to run a festival. You know, I'm an arts administrator, so you know, I'd like to be paid for my services. And so I think that's certainly appropriate to include. But when half of the project budget is artists and half of it is contracting, for me, that really weighted my score in that area. The letters from the past artists were great. Like, they were really good. You know, when you were able to hear the artists talk about, you know, I was on stage, the impact on underserved audiences, like, you could feel that from the artist. Like, for me, that really shows it. You know, we talked about, you know, don't tell me that it's available, like, show me like what is happening with the audiences. And the artist letters, that really drove it home. And so that was that was one of the highlights for me with this application.
Great, thank you. And we'll follow with Pam.
Thank you. I again have to, you know, full disclosure, I'm a long time and enthusiastic attender of these concerts. So I probably managed to get to 4 or 5 a summer. And if that disqualifies my comments, that's okay. But I would agree, you know, very, very largely with Matthew about, you know, the strengths of this application. I know I have heard many of the artists in that venue and in other venues around Lincoln, and they are top quality, even the ones that are not, you know, not compensated. For example, the Pangea, the Southwest High School's wonderful pan band. So I was able to give them a high quality on artistic, a high score on artistic quality. I agree with Matthew, and I you know, I hadn't seen it before because, you know, I just wasn't focusing hard enough on the budget. I thought it was reasonable, but I think I would have to agree in retrospect with Matthew about the amount of money that's going to arts administration. And also evaluation, being that I am a longtime audience, I don't remember ever filling out a questionnaire or even seeing one. And on community outreach, it's a wonderful idea. Community audience, I mean, the idea of enticing people who are working in downtown Lincoln is great, but the audiences have been very small, and there are families, which I think is wonderful, kids, you know, kind of romping around in the fountain and that sort of thing. But it's a very small space, doesn't accommodate many people, especially in the summer where shade is at a premium. And the parking in downtown Lincoln is very difficult. So even if you try to entice a wider audience, and they do try, Lord knows, I get a lot of emails from them. They're working on it. It's a very awkward and difficult thing, especially for people without private transportation. That's my main concern about the application. But I do think that artistically, the experiences have been very good.
Okay, thank you, Pam. And Zach, I'll look to you. Do you have any additional comments on this particular application?
I have nothing to add that was really already touched on. I also, like Matthew mentioned, I did kind of, you know, I wondered about the utility necessarily of including the historic article, but I waited less given that it wasn't one of the optional work samples, and that they put in the title historic, so that I knew it was part of the testimony of the historical foundation upon it, and not necessarily representative altogether by itself of the current impact. So, and I also used to work in that building, the building that Alec works in now. So, I, just like Dr. Starr said, I also have been able to attend a few, and I think it does great work. And this is an impressive application, all things considered.
Thank you, Zach. Laura, do you have any additional comments?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So you all can take a moment and conclude your scoring. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Laura. Thanks, Zach. And thank you, Pam. Very good. We will move on to the next grant application, and it is the Merrymakers Association. And Rachel, please give us the synopsis.
Thank you, Sarah. This grant will help pay for contracted professional musicians to provide live musical entertainment on a monthly basis to senior citizens at 6 Nebraska senior communities for an entire year. The project will occur between July 1st and June 30th of 2025. Will provide 72 live performances and achieve approximately 2,000 direct contact hours with participating seniors.
Very good. Thank you. And Zach, I will turn it over to you as primary reviewer for this application.
Absolutely. And I apologize that I've been looking down at my phone a couple times in the past few minutes and kind of working while we're doing this too. So I'm very sorry. But yeah, so I love the Merrymakers application. I've been familiar with them in the past, but the two things that I flagged for the application was that the first works sample was a good indication of Merrymakers' overall mission, but it wasn't indicative of this particular program in particular for which they requested funding. So from what I recall, this wasn't to my notes, but I believe it was a national link representative of what Merrymakers as a national organization does. I would like to see a work sample describing this particular program, what they're doing with this money that we would be potentially giving them. And the second thing was I liked the letter from Mayor Stothard's office, but forgive me for all the government minutia from the government, and I'm here to help. But I like the letter from Mayor Stothard's office, but I noticed that it said Parks and Rec Department in the letterhead, and it also wasn't signed. So I was curious if this was a letter from Mayor Stothard herself, or from the head of the Parks and Rec Department, or from maybe an employee within Omaha Parks and Rec who does community engagement or community relations of some sort. So I would have liked to see a bit more delineation on who is writing that letter on behalf of the city of Omaha. And beyond that, everything else was very impressive.
All right. Very good. And Pam, you are our secondary reviewer for this
Okay,
app.
thank you. I agree. I really do agree with Zach. It was a very intriguing and solid application. And I was impressed with most of the rubrics, most of the areas, especially the Elvis impersonator. No, only kidding. That was adorable, but they had some serious stuff in there as well. My only concern was with the lack of detail in the indicating the specific partner facilities. Where are they located? What communities are they serving? What's the demographics in them? There seemed to be good evaluation and feedback processes, but I really couldn't tell as much as I would have liked about their boast about bringing the arts to underserved retirement and elderly communities. So I would love to see more detail in a subsequent application on that. I wasn't really clear. There was a letter from the Parks and Rec of Omaha. I noticed that one, but I don't know what KROC Community Centers is. I'm not sure what that even is, what the acronym is. But on whole, I think they're a professional and smoothly running organization that does supply engagement, entertaining engagement for retirement and assisted living communities around Nebraska, whatever they may be.
All right, thank you. And so KROC, just as an aside, is the Kroc Center, funded by the Kroc family of McDonald's.
Oh,
Um,
oh
and
my.
so it's like a community center in Omaha, and a very fine one. It's
Oh,
been a while
okay.
since I've been there. All right, thank you. And Matthew, any extra comments from you, please?
Yep. My only comment was I really liked the project description for this one. I think that's the clearest spot that the partner facilities were identified. I do agree with Dr. Starr that it could have been better if that was in a couple other areas, because if it's not, if you don't get it in the project description, it's really not in the other areas. And when we talk about the outreach, like that's the area I'm scoring. So like driving home, like these places, these coordinators, these residents in that section would be really helpful. Because again, I'm grabbing from the project description to try and drop it down and give you points in outreach and engagement. And I just love that, like this is it's so straightforward. That's like the only element for me that wasn't straightforward, is that like trying to piece together where it's happening. But you know, this number of musicians, this number of contact hours in these places, love that. I feel like I know what your project is and I could sell it to somebody like really quickly.
Thank you. And I believe Laura,
Yeah.
you're
Well,
left.
yeah, I agree with what's been said about not knowing exactly where these are, and it seems like 6 of them are in the Omaha area, so therefore not really diverse. Well, they could be diverse, but we just don't know. And 2 of them, one's in Columbus and one's in Emerson, so most of them are in Omaha themselves. I think it's a fine application. I think it's always hard to measure the cognitive, psychosocial, and physical aspects that the music is providing for seniors. But at the same time, we've got a strong letter from someone in a senior center attesting to that. So I mean, it's certainly something that I would want to support.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. So take a moment to conclude your scoring. And I think we are at another great place to pause, Rachel, if you think we could take a break at this point. Take a breather. Okay, Pam, thanks. Did everybody else? And I know you guys can conclude. Thanks, Laura, Zach, and Matthew. So how does that sound? A little
Yes.
pause.
Yeah, that sounds great. Why don't we come back right at 11?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
No problem. Thank you, Zach. I must commend you all. I hope you're all doing well. I must commend you all on your use of time management. We had a ambitious number of grant applications, and you're all doing great going through them. So thank you. So our next application is from the Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble, Inc. And Rachel, please start us out with the synopsis.
Thank you, Sarah. The Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble will present one in-person concert in Lincoln, and then 2 live-streamed trumpet recitals in the fall of 2024.
All right, very good. Our primary reviewer is Zach, please.
Absolutely. And I'll add the qualification that I was particularly excited to hear what Matthew had to say about Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble for obvious reasons. But so anything I say that is different from what he says, I defer to him. Things I particularly liked about this application include the letter of support from the head of the International Trumpet Guild at CU Boulder. Well, I'm looking through my notes here. I liked how detailed they were, especially in the artistic merit section. I like the season flyers and the YouTube channel. Beyond that, let me see. There was something about the project goals. So they mentioned how the project goals. They mentioned what their project goals are. They mentioned what their impact is. But I would like to see a better link between how their goals meet their impact. So like they say the goal of this project is to bring rarely heard professional trumpet music as well as solo music to the Lincoln community and schools. We aim to reach a variety of people. While audience attendance varies, we tend to reach 100 people and 200 plus for live streamed events. And is that within their expectations? Does that exceed their expectations? How has that changed over time? That was the main thing swimming around in my mind. Beyond that, it would be fishing to look for more criticisms to make because it was such a good application. So that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you, Zach. Our secondary reviewer is Laura.
Yeah. I like the application. I suppose that I have a few little nitpicky things to complain about. Mention. One is that when they talk about the qualifications of the artist, they're talking about the live stream or these performances feature music and an ensemble style rarely heard live in Lincoln and are free with no admission. I don't know what that means. I want that explained better. Is it to have to do with the repertoire? Does it have to do with the style? What kinds of could you give some kind of example? They did give an example, and I thought it was very good, the YouTube video. But if they could also say in words what they mean by some of that, I think it would be helpful to me as a non-trumpet player. I too like the letter from the artist in Boulder. I thought that was very strong and very appropriate. I also think that the many of these performers are from Nebraska is important because I think it's good to know that we have such high quality musicians. They talk a lot about the goals of trumpet music to the Lincoln community and to provide music education in the local schools. And again, I think I just want a little bit more about that. I want to know in what way, how do they reach out to the schools exactly? The evaluation plan, I always think, is a little on the weaker side. They say the concerts are held in accessible venues, but they don't say where. And then they say that they're in local churches. So which is it? Is it that they're just in the local churches or what? They say that that they rely on social media for promotion, and they say that the Facebook pages are increasing their likes. But by how much? Can you give kind of some sort of detail? We have no basis of comparison. They just kind of, state some things, and then we're kind of going, oh, okay. But it would be nice to really know, the detail. Again, detail is everything in these applications. There can never be too much. And so I just want to know by how much things are increasing. As I said, I think their questionnaires basically count heads in the audience. Do teachers ever complete evaluations? And what are some of the questions that are being asked? I think they did a great job on the demographics. They have their target audience are community members, students, music teachers, and professionals, and amateur musicians. It's very concrete. It's a little closed, but it is what it is, right? And I think that's important. They don't really talk about underserved outreach. And again, I would wish that if they might incorporate a little of that into the application. Yeah. I think there's some things that are just assumed in this application that should be more delineated. For example, for outreach, they might want to focus on Title I schools or something like that. Again, just to diversify a little bit. But in general, I think it's a strong application.
Thanks, Laura. Good observations. And I think, Pam, I'll let you go next if you have anything to add.
Sure. Mostly just agreement. I have a suspicion about, I forget who made that comment about what exactly they're demonstrating, what kind of things they're demonstrating to the Lincoln community. I guess was that Laura, was that you? I think what they're doing is showing that an all trumpet ensemble can be really fun and interesting to listen to. Because yes, there are plenty of brass ensembles and you can hear that kind of music. But again, from personal experience, one might be put off by the concept of just 5 or 6 trumpet players playing at you. And they find a way to make it artistic. And I think that's the point they were making about their what they bring to the Lincoln community. I did notice that they had also they had claimed that there were appearances in elementary schools and retirement communities, as well as their 1 live concert and 2 live stream. But I would have liked much more detail about what, for instance, what elementary schools do they have planned and what retirement communities. Yeah, I think that really was it. It's a laudable enterprise, and the artists themselves, again, some of whom I've taught in my time at UNL, are enthusiastic and engaged artists, and very skilled, highly skilled.
Thank you, Pam. And we're anxious to hear from you, Matthew.
Yes. So full disclosure, I'm a past board member from somewhere around 10 years ago on the trumpet ensemble, and have performed with them throughout the years, but not currently. Haven't played with them in several years. And I thought it was a strong application overall. I will say that the biggest area scoring wise for me was in the planning and evaluation, where again it doesn't fully go through the day of the concert and the what Dr. Dameth was talking about with the, like, what are the goals? What are we measuring? Is 100 what we're going for? I think maybe Zach mentioned that too. Like, I don't know what the goal is. So I don't know if, if it's being blown away or if it's not being reached, just because it's not identified as clearly as I would like. And I appreciate it in the budget. It both outlines the expenses for the retirement centers. So it's nice to see that broken out, because then that's an intentional item that will happen. I didn't see the schools. And so when I'm reading and I'm hearing about the school outreach and impact that I know happens, because they both so clearly articulated it, and I've seen it, all over their social media. I want to see that, like, probably in the budget, unless that's incorporated into the concert fee. I didn't have a sense of that. And so that could have been clearer. And the other piece in the budget is I saw there's a defined line item for recording, which is great. There's not a lot of recordings of this literature. But then the performance samples that they provided are really limited. So if there's a defined budget for recording, like, next year or in future years, I don't know if they've had previous funding allocated for recording. I want to see stronger samples, because that's something that's being outlined in the budget is we're going to have recording, but I want to see those. And so I think that's something to keep in mind for the future.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. So everybody take a moment to complete your scoring. Thank you, Laura. Thanks, Zach, Pam, and Matthew. All right, great. We are ready to move on to the next grant application, which is from Partners for Livable Omaha. And Rachel, give us a synopsis, please.
Thank you, Sarah. This grant will help pay the production staff and performing artists who perform during a 2-day, 2-location outdoor performing arts series called Pull Up and Vibe. Summer series to be held in downtown Omaha's historic Jean Leahy Mall on Saturday, August 3rd of 2024, and then in the Benson Creative District on September 6th of 2024. They estimate 3,000 attendees from the greater Omaha metro area will attend.
All right, thank you, Rachel. And Matthew, please start us off with the primary review.
Yes, I really enjoyed reviewing this application, and I think the biggest thing that I took away from it is I love the idea of having both a large central event that it can be we're gonna really put the flag in the ground and like this is our big event we're having, and then also going into little pockets all over the community and rotating through different neighborhoods so that different neighborhoods get that experience. I love that programming. I overall, I scored this application, really high. I felt like as a reviewer, I was really expected to do a lot of work to try and understand what was going on with the program. The work samples were really limited, and I felt like it was difficult to understand the full breadth of the artistic genres and the artists who were involved. The strongest sample that was provided was the bios, and it's this is like live music and DJing, and I need something that helps me do that, and I found myself like trying to go through the bios and like Google searching to see who the artists were, and that's it. I didn't feel like I came away with like a representative sample of like what it really is like both in the large scale and in the neighborhood concerts. I thought that the goals were clearly outlined, and I love seeing that growth in artist fees can be a goal of the project. I think that's a fabulous goal. It's like we're trying to grow the money that we have to pay artists. What a great thing to specifically call out. Tripling the attendance and quadrupling the artist and creative fees. Again, like that's pretty ambitious, but it seems like the plan is there. So I was able to score that high overall. I do question, a $500 total promotional budget. Just again, you're trying to both have a large event and you're trying to go into a lot of neighborhoods, and it sounds like the grassroots effort is there. I just wonder if designating a little bit, more funding in the budget for promotion could ensure that the outreach and that the attendance is maximized. I thought that the letters were really strong, and there's clearly confidence in the organizational leadership, in the growth, and in the authenticity that this is, this is really part of these neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods are looking forward to the performances. So I really enjoyed scoring this application.
Thank you, Matthew. And I will turn it over to Zach as secondary reviewer.
Yeah, Matthew touched on the main points I had, especially like the chief concern that I had about it was that the work samples were not necessarily indicative of the work that will be in this performance series. So yeah, beyond that was the main concern I had, and Matthew touched on everything else that was a concern for me.
All right, very good. Pam, would you like to make any additional comments?
Sure, I will, just a couple. I like the idea of the, okay, wait a minute. The open call for performers from the area. I mean, I wish they had expanded a bit on how that would work, how that would sink in with the artists that they'd engaged. Would there be any interaction between the engaged artists and these people who would presumably be stepping up to an open mic? Or I'm not sure how that worked. So it'd be good to have that information. About artists' fees, it seemed as if the artists they mentioned, I'm a little naive, I don't know who these artists are, and maybe $2,000 per performer is totally on point in the budget, but it seemed a bit high. And especially if their goal is to enhance, money raising for artists. And I noticed in the budget that there was no outside support indicated, no ticket sales at all. If they're having high profile performers, they might want to consider a modest admission fee and just some cash on hand from Partners for a Livable Omaha. So I don't know, the budget didn't quite add up. I'd like to see more detail there. Otherwise, strong community outreach and engagement. So there's no question. I would agree with that. The other reports.
Thank you, Pam. Laura, any additional comments from you?
Just a couple things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was very responsive to the community needs and interests, which is what we've kind of been talking about. I too really like the fact that it's going to be in 2 locations, in the smaller Benson neighborhood for which this is a very important, but also to the larger venue in downtown Omaha. I suppose the only thing is my naivete again. I thought one of the letters was very strong. The letter from Mann could have been stronger, and I didn't know who he was. And I wish that he would have identified himself in his letter so that we understood his importance to his recommendation.
Okay, very good. Please take a moment to go ahead to score Partners for a Livable Omaha. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Matthew. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Pam. Very good. Okay. We're ready to move on to the River City Mixed Chorus. And Rachel, please take over with the synopsis.
Thank you, Sarah. This grant will help cover production expenses for the River City Mixed Choruses Winter 2024 concert at the Holland Performing Arts Center on December 7th. An estimated 1,300 people will attend the performance.
All right. And Laura, you are going to start us out as the primary reviewer.
I really like this application. I think that a gay chorus can be an important sort of community for the members, but also making an important statement to the overall community, and I thought it was really strong that way. I think that this is a non-professional chorus. These are just community members, but they're being led by someone who's very skilled. And so in terms of artistic merit, to me, that seems to be very strong, that because you can hear when you watch their performances that they are being trained, that they're being worked with. And I think that that's important. I think it's kind of in a sense, it's unusual to have such a large group of non-professionals being led by the professional. And I think he does a brilliant job. I thought the planning process was very thorough. In terms of the budget, $8,000 does go to the artistic director. That's a huge amount of money, I think. They also talk about cash on hand. And I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Does that mean something that they just simply have to have in the ticket office? I just wasn't sure, and I wish that they might have detailed that a little bit more. I thought they had a lovely description of the audience demographics for the and demographics of Omaha. I think they do a lot with underserved outreach, community engagement events. They have a smaller group that can go to around to schools and community centers. I didn't get the sense, though, that they did a lot of educational outreach to schools, and that's something they might want to add. Again, I don't know. It's just that wasn't really mentioned. But they have two great community partners, the First United Methodist Church of Omaha, where they practice, and Omaha Performing Arts. And these are very specific but very supportive partners. The letters are strong. I suppose expanding their community partners wouldn't be a bad thing if there was a way that they could, again, innovatively think about more broad, let's say, broader impact on the community. But in general, it's an application that I think is very strong.
All right. Thank you, Laura. And Matthew, you are our secondary reviewer.
Yeah, I have pretty limited additional things beyond what Dr. Demuth said. In planning and evaluation, increasing attendance by 10%, that's a great goal for 2023. I don't know what that means, though, because I said, the budget is 1,000 attendees. So was it, were they at 900 last year, or were they at 1,000? So the goal is actually 1,100. That's one of those, it's close to perfect. I want to give full points. And so just outlining this is where we were, this is what our goal is. That's what pushes it into that very last category to get full points. One thing I really appreciated in the outreach and engagement is just, not requiring young performers to apply for scholarships. It can be an interesting thing where you have it's a community organization, but there's a membership fee, but they charge tickets and the artistic director's paid, and sometimes there cannot be a new performer recruitment strategy. And so in addition to, having a process by which people can apply to not have the membership fee, just saying, if you're a young adult singer, you want to sing with us, there's no fee. I think that's just a more inclusive practice, out of the gate, to bring people in, to the organization. And the other thing I made a note of was that selecting venues that have accessibility for performers in addition to audience members was noted, just because it's not something that I've often read. And so often there can be, stage platforms or stairs or risers, and so saying we're an inclusive group. We're going to select venues where we can have an inclusive space for our artists to perform. That was just something that was unique that stood out to me.
Thank you. Very good. Pam, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I would just like to reinforce what Laura said. I was very impressed with the fact that these amateur singers were brought together by a very accomplished director to sound. They were singing above their weight, and that's not an easy thing to do. As a lifelong choral singer, I know that a lot rests on the director to get the motivation, the willingness to dig in. And I think that director was worth his salary. So I don't think that was an excessive requirement. Also, I looked at the $13,500 fee for using the Holland Center, which is, by the way, more than the Lead Center charges. I happen to know that. But having this performance at the Holland Center is a brilliant idea. It brings in an audience. It gives it prestige. Imprimatur, they're performing in the primary performing arts venue in Omaha. I dare say that, a lot of the supporters of the LGBTQ community would want to be there and see them in that venue. And then other people who just like to go to the Holland Center for a good artistic experience at Christmas would also be there and be impressed. I'd like to see those qualities headlined in the next application. The fact that this is an amateur group that is quite remarkable in their performance, I thought, really, should be out, should be headlined. It wasn't clear to me where else they perform, or, they weren't, I guess, applying for funding for any other performances. At least I didn't see any listing of those, but they said that there was strong community outreach. I presume that's in the Omaha community. But I will say this, after hearing their video and reading about them, I'd go up to Omaha next time to hear them perform at the Holland Center. It's an impressive group. And if they're really the fifth oldest LGBTQ non-professional chorus in the United States, they should be putting that in bold, very large type. That's very impressive to me. Yeah. And maybe with color or something in the application, but that was impressive as well.
All right. Thank you, Pam. Zach, do you have any additional comments?
Yes, and forgive me for having had to duck out for 30 seconds. I was more impressed with this application than well, forgive me, I shouldn't compare applications to one another. I wish I could take those words back just now. I was incredibly impressed with this application. And I gave it a very high score, and I have no major comments to the extent that some of the concerns other people talked about that I had heard. I don't necessarily give that much. I care about what they have to say, of course. I just necessarily don't know if I concur absolutely myself. This was it's a great organization. It's done a long, well-established series, and I'm happy to see it continuing.
Thank you, Zach. Take a moment for calculations of your scoring. Oh, Matthew, thank you. Thanks, Zach. Laura. Pam, thank you. So we are now at our final 13th and final grant application. It is United by Culture Media. And please give us the synopsis, Rachel.
Thank you, Sarah. This grant will help pay for the artists who perform during the United by Culture Festival at various venues, including the new Veterans Memorial Pavilion and Amphitheater from September 20th through the 22nd of 2024. They estimate 3,000 people from Central Nebraska will attend the festival activities.
Okay. And Pam, will you please get us started with your review?
Yes, happy to. Bringing up the rear. This application emphasizes diversity, cultural storytelling, and cultural experiences. But I wished it had more detail on the artists who would enact that, who would bring that to life, other than that they would be, quote, new and representing different cultures, artists. And I didn't see a process on selection or artistic merit. It was very hard, therefore, to assess what that would be. So in subsequent applications, I think I would recommend a lot more detail on those things, particularly how the artist chosen would promote the mission of cultural storytelling. An interesting idea, but I found that vague and unspecific. I will say this, it's just an aside. I had to do a lot of digging to find out where this festival took place. I finally found that it was in Lexington. And then I looked at a map of Nebraska to find out, what metro areas were 2 hours away. I presume they mean Grand Island. I don't know. They were saying something about, well, it's very hard to hear artistic, performers if you can't get to a metro area. So if it was Grand Island, I don't know, or Denver. But it would be really nice to have that be front and center where it's located. The project goal, unity of families through cultural learning through various arts, is praiseworthy, but the lack of planning specifics at the time of the application is concerning. The budget includes a total of $25,000 in artists' fees, but who are the artists? and why would they deserve that much? Which seems very high. The background of the organizers is strong, but no one with specific musical experience is indicated. So that was a concern. The letters of support and the demographics point to strong outreach engagement, at least to the part of the Lexington community of Hispanic and Latino origin, which apparently, according to the application, is the major segment of the community in Lexington, though I just might question that statement. I'd like some statistics on that. There seems to be plenty of outreach by volunteers and efforts to promote the 3-day event, which sounds like it will be a lot of fun. But again, little specifics about the arts or artistic experience that would reinforce the diverse story of their mission statement. So the summary is the application is strong on diversity and community involvement, weak or vague on how arts fit into this mission.
Thank you, Pam. And Zach, you are our secondary reviewer.
I'm sorry, did you call on me?
Zach, yes,
My
thank
audio
you.
cut out for a second and then
Okay,
I looked over
secondary
and it's suddenly
reviewer.
silence and I feel like everybody's through Zoom looking at me. My apologies, guys.
Thanks.
But yeah, I agree with a lot of what Dr. Starr said. The main comments I took down were I'd love the work samples to include artistic samples, but at the same time, this does reinforce my impression of the community impact it has within Lexington. Again, I speak with caution, hoping to not compare applications to one another, but just saying that as I've been assessing these applications more abstractly, I want the work samples to be representative of artistic quality, and I want the letters of support to be representative of community impact. But I feel like they've crossed over sometimes where the work samples talk about community impact, letters of support talk about artistic quality. And I don't mind if they're still able to address both points, but for a lot of the crossover I've seen, it hasn't been simultaneous. So people have either doubled down on artistic quality or doubled down on community impact. And with that said, I think it has a big impact in Lexington. I know Dawson County is a huge Hispanic population, including some, general demographics to support that would be nice, just because, like Dr. Starr and a lot of other people might not go in knowing that Lexington is huge Hispanic and, even Afghan populations. I know Lexington is actually home to a lot of Afghan refugees, but I digress. The programming was good. I wrote that it was good, obviously well-intentioned, but a bit too abstract. So that's what I said with the programming in my notes. And then I said I loved both letters of support, but the first especially. So I struggled to remember off the top of my mind what the first letter of support was, but I know that I liked it more so than second. But those were the main things I had written down.
Oh, thank you. Very good. Laura, would you like to add anything?
I don't have too much to add. I agree with what both Zach and Pamela said. I too had a hard time finding out where it was. It took me a while to figure out it was in Lexington. I think the fact that it is a response to an immigration raid is a very powerful thing, and is something that they need, that they're obviously they're keeping in their memory as they proceed with this event. I do wonder, to me, I wonder why we don't have more artists selected, why we don't have, something. I mean, something would have been better than nothing. So, but other than that, I mean, it's a great, it's a great opportunity for them to bring the community together. So, I'm very supportive.
Thank you, Laura. And Matthew, do you have any final comments?
Yes, this is another, like, I want to go to this festival. I'm super interested in attending this festival. The comments I had when scoring it were just, anything that showcases the artists is what I need. Something that like video links to past artist websites. I need something that like just shows me like this is who's going to be performing, or this is who we'd like to have perform. I think even showcasing an aspirational, like, we're hoping to have an artist like this or a regional artist like that would really help to fill that in. The planning document what was a concern area for me. It has the really big picture timeline, but just like filling in some more detail, some dates, some key milestones throughout it. Like this strikes me as a big festival with a pretty high level planning document. And so I want to see a little more detail because it's such a large, it's such a large event. And connected to that, as I was kind of looking at the planning document, only $450 in admin expenses. I just wonder if like maybe there needs to be a stronger component actually dedicated towards administering this like big festival. And when I looked at the kind of the overall budget breakdown, seeing I think it was 12, I have so many budgets open here, sorry. Seeing the 12,000 in attractions is like, oh, so there's like a lot more, outside of the artists. I want to know what all that is. Because I want to give credit for how many different types of vendors and organizations and artists are being involved. And I didn't get a sense of that. And so my overall impression was I really want to go to this festival so that I can see what it is. Because I didn't feel like I walked away reading the application really knowing what all the components were.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion for the applications and very thorough review. And thank you, panelists. You are a talented, stellar group, and you have done such a wonderful job, not just simply reviewing, but giving great advice, turning this into an exercise in pedagogy for all of the grant writers out there, and also going very far in helping the Nebraska Arts Council deploy these funds and keep our stewardship of the funds at the highest level. So thank you for that. And as I'm talking, you can, of course, complete your scoring. At this time, we are approaching a 5-minute break, during which time the Nebraska Arts Council staff will tally the scores, prepare the information for our final discussion. And when the panelists reconvene, we will review the procedure about making the final determinations on all of these grant applications. The final portion of our meeting is closed to the public, so we will end the live stream. I want to remind the applicants that you'll be notified in June about the funding decisions for this category. I want to thank all of you watching and participating virtually with us today. And thank you. And Rachel and Mike, any other final words before we close the live stream?
I would just say thank you to everyone who tuned in. I think this is always a very valuable experience to be able to hear the discussion and not have to drive to Omaha to do it. So that's always nice too, the comfort of your living room. Thank you to the panelists and the time that you have spent reading and scoring all of the applications. I really appreciate that. Mike probably has a few words just for the panelists. This is the last chance to adjust any scores. So what I would do is when you turn your camera off, we are going to take that as you are done adjusting scores. Everything will be locked in. That will kind of be our signal for that when we go to the break. So just kind of an FYI for that. Mike?
Just to chime in to congratulate the panel for all the work that you've done, and to say to everybody out there in the Zoom land that good luck with your projects. And you noticed that Rachel didn't have much to say during the panel, and that's not because she's disinterested. It's just that she stays out of the panel process. She allows the panel to do her work, their work. But just so that you know that she is always there after the process if you have any questions or thoughts. So good luck again. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, panel, as you are completed, you can go offline or close your window and then we'll know. Yes, Pam. And unmute, please.
Did I understand you to say there would be a 5-minute break as you score everything and then we come back in 5? Would you tell us when to come back? That's what I'm.
Yes, Rachel, I'll leave that in your hands.
Perfect.
Perfect. Let's come back at 11:50.
Okay.
Very good.